And we're live, but we're gonna slowly kind of get into this because we're waiting for the ads to wrap up. If you're jumping into the comments and you're early, make yourself known, introduce yourself in the comments, and we'll get started here in just a moment. Got a lot to get into, and we don't have a ton of time to do it. But that'll be what makes it fun. All right, we might as well get started. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the next hour of Hobby Palooza. I hope you're still alive out there and ready to hear about some more cardboard because we're going to get into it today. We have some great guests with us today. First of all, I want to do a shout out to Baseball Hall of Fame Autographs and Bill Hall of Fame Collector, who just wrapped up their live session right before this one. Great job, guys. And so I'm going to get into this.
Cards, I crash. That's why I use my fitness pal. One of my favorite features.
Okay. All good. All right. It's okay. We can kind of throw things, left and right and see what happens. So this is the third year I'm doing this on Hobby Palooza. So I want to send a special shout out to Mike, Baseball Collector, and everybody at Bench Clear. It's always a lot of fun, and it means a lot to me to get to do this. So thanks, guys. And, thanks to everybody for pulling this together today. John Keating behind the scenes right now is helping us out. So thanks, John. For those of you guys that don't know me, my name's Alex. My YouTube channel name is Bowman53. And what I'd like to start us off with is an introduction of all these great collectors that are here with us today. So we have Nina with us today, Nina S. Nina, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
We've got Rick from Rick Acosta, Dodger Card Collector. Rick, good to see you.
Hi, Alex. Hi, everybody.
Doug from Decon's Cardboard. Doug, hello.
Hello. Hey.
And we've got Dan from Dan's Vintage Baseball PC.
Hey, Alex. How you doing?
I'm great. I'm so glad to have all you guys here. So while we get into this, guys, I would encourage you all to open up another YouTube tab in your browser and go find these YouTubers' channels and subscribe to them if you haven't already. All of these folks here have great YouTube channels. They have great collections. And beyond today, they're going to be people that are worth following as they continue their collecting journey. So I definitely encourage you guys to follow all of these YouTubers' channels. You will not regret it. Before we get into this, I want to mention again that this year we'll be raising money for the Signatures for Soldiers program during the stream. So please make sure to consider making a donation. You can get the info down below. You can see that in the stream to make a donation through PayPal. So be generous if you can in an effort to help out our vets. So finally, we're going to get into this. We're going to talk about vintage card collecting. Of course, if you couldn't tell by the panel of guests we have here, some of us collect modern, but most of us are primarily focused on vintage card collecting. So that's what we're going to get into. But before we do that, I do want to give each of you guys a chance to introduce yourselves and briefly describe or discuss your collecting focus. So Nina, why don't we start with you? Give us a sense of what your collecting focus is.
Okay. Thanks, Alex. Hello, everybody. Good to see everybody. Well, I've been collecting vintage for probably the last 3 years, and I've been all over the place, but about 6 months ago, I decided I was going to go ahead and do a set collect. So right now I'm collecting the 52 Bowman set, doing pretty well, thanks mostly to Brian Roth and other YouTube friends. I also have a minor first baseman collection from all vintages because, believe it or not, I used to play first base a long time ago. And then those of you that know me know that I am both a Cleveland Indians / Guardians fan, and my good old Reds are starting to come alive here.
Yeah, how about that?
Back to being a Reds fan again. So yeah, I'm definitely fair weather, but I'm enjoying it. So I do collect ultra modern cards too of the players that I love to watch.
Sounds good. Doug, go ahead.
Hey, thank you. So I cast a super wide net. I would say of late, I've been definitely getting more knowledgeable and going down the pre-war route. I think that's sort of like I don't know if evolution is the right word, but it's kind of like collecting what you know, and I think pre-war is harder to know. So as you journey down, learning more about the history of baseball, that becomes more interesting. And then just the kind of idea that you have this old card in your hand that's like an artifact of history, just kind of has an extra special value to me. But I still get modern cards. I just financially, it's like 1% of my budget. So looking for those deals for modern. But yeah, I look for cards that are compelling visually. I look for cards that have some sort of historical significance, and of course, great players.
Right. Sounds good. Rick, go ahead.
I would say that my collection is basically in 3 phases, so to speak. I collect Dodger team sets from 1915 to present day. I'm also doing a Hall of Fame graded cards collection. That's something I'm trying to grow, just so I can put cards up on my display walls. And then lastly, I work on vintage sets. I've completed 1953 and 1957 in the past year. And I'm currently working on a 1941 play ball set, which was totally inspired by you, Alex. I'm copying you and getting all the cards graded the way you did your 1953.
So it's
card
my
set.
fault. Thanks.
It is your fault, totally. That's how I
Great.
met you.
All right, and Dan, go ahead.
Hi, Alex. So, you asked the toughest question first, which is to focus, which is one of my. I started out my channel about a month ago, and I introduced myself by saying I'm a player-run collector, and then I realized that right behind me was a whole Dodger thing. So I'm a player-run collector mostly, but I do have teams that I collect. I collect 50s Dodgers, Brooklyn only. Sorry, Rick. And I also collect the 1914 Braves and 48 Braves, and assorted Yankees. And I also have sets, as you know, Alex. I've completed the 53 Bowman color, which I'm transitioning from raw cards to graded only. I have a complete set of the 1948 Bowman in SGC slabs. I have a complete Topps 56. I'm currently working, hi Nina, on 52 Bowman and 54 Bowman, and a couple of the later sets like 72, 68, and 67.
Fantastic. Great. And just to throw it in there, most people know, if you follow my channel, that yes, I built the 1953 Bowman color set. That was several years ago now, at this point. And now I'm mostly kind of all over the place with vintage, and I'm kind of similar to what Doug was saying. I kind of react to the cards that catch my eye. I definitely like to dabble in pre-war. I spent a lot of time in the 50s with both Bowman and Topps. And I've realized somewhat recently that I am PCing New York City baseball teams, mostly in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. So I really am drawn to the Brooklyn Dodgers, the New York Giants, and the Yankees from that era. Not trying to get every single card, but just the ones that jump out at me. So that's roughly where I am when it comes to card collecting. So I got a lot of questions for all of you, but I tried to pepper in opportunities for you guys to show cards, because everybody likes to look at cards. So my first question, and Nina, we're going to start with you, is to show a card. And what I asked these guys was to pick a card where there's a story attached to that card in terms of how they acquired the card. Maybe it was from a card show or some event, or maybe there's some kind of a personal connection as to where that card came from or how you ended up getting it, whether it was maybe from your childhood or perhaps you got it yesterday. It could be from any time period. So Nina, let's see your card.
Well, so since I've been collecting the 52 Bowman set, I've received many generous donations from my YouTube pals. One of the ones that I find is the most interesting is from my buddy Don.
Oh, wow.
And it's the Eddie Stanky card. But if you look closely, it says from the Eddie Stanky collection.
Fantastic.
I did not know anything about this, but I guess there's a whole series of cards that Stanky had himself, and they were graded by SGC. And from what I can see, they were all graded as authentic. But one of the great things about collecting the 52 Bowman set is how many people love the set and are interested in the set. And like I say, have been very generous in sharing with me. So
That is really great to actually have a card that Eddie Stanky had. I mean, that's got such an extra, bit of history
That's
to
amazing.
Thank you, Don.
it. I'll let any of you guys decide who wants to go next.
Mine's a little long, so I don't know if you want me to.
I'll go next.
Okay, thanks, Rick.
I'll go next. Mine has to deal with a childhood story. My brother had a buddy who came over one day, and he saw I was about 14 years old. He knew that I collected baseball cards. This was like in the late 70s, so I was showing off my 1970s cards. And one day he comes over with a shoebox, and he goes, "Yeah, these are my dad's cards," and he wanted to show them to me, and so he started taking them out. And first thing he does is he takes out a 1955 Roberto Clemente, and I went,
Whoa.
"Oh, wow!" Then he takes out a 1955 Koufax. Then he takes out a 1955 Ted Williams, and these are all tops, by the way. So he and my brother were going to go somewhere, and I was kind of bummed he didn't want to let me look through the box of cards. But he decided to, he kept showing me some cards, and he noticed. He goes, "Oh, look, I have 2 Ted Williams cards." And and I was kind of like, "Wow, that's cool." And he goes, "Here, you take this one."
Oh,
Wow.
So he gave it to me. It was ungraded. This was back in 1979, and I had it graded several years ago. And it's just a card I hold good memories to, because unfortunately, as we go through life, friends disappear. And when my brother's friend disappeared after a couple of years, he went on with his life. And I don't know whatever happened to all those baseball cards he had in that shoebox that night.
But you've got one.
I've got one of them. I bought the Koufax later.
I bet Brian Roth bought it somewhere.
I bet he did.
True.
All right. So since you just mentioned Ted Williams, I have a Ted Williams one as well. So there is a 1951 Liebig, which is a European meat company that made cards for 100+ years. There's a Ted Williams. There's a card that depicts Ted Williams. It doesn't say it's Ted Williams. It's from this same set. So this is a soccer card. It's a sports around the world or Lo Sport nel Mundo. So I was looking to get the Ted Williams card. So I got a set of 6 from Italy that came in this package here. Okay, it was I paid €2.50, euro, 16 euro for shipping, and I ended up getting this card. This is now graded. This is the Ted Williams.
Nice.
This was €2.50.
Oh my.
and I got the other one, the other 5. I got the whole set. So it didn't mention Ted Williams. I really didn't know what I was getting. It wasn't a high quality picture. Clearly the seller didn't know what it was either. So it was a low risk. And I just went for it. I was never expecting such a high quality card. I couldn't even. It was like this whole card was like 10 pixels in the image. So this is my best story. And this was like last year. So got it for €2.50. And it graded a 7, 1951 Ted Williams depicted card.
Wow.
Oh my.
That is so great.
So I bought this card at the Houston Card Show, even though I've never been to Houston, Texas. And this is a story about friendship, trust, and reputation. I bought this card because a friend of mine from Twitter named Ben decided to say in a group chat on Twitter, and Alex, I do a lot of buying, trading, and selling on Twitter, that he was going to the Houston show and said, does anybody have anything that they're interested in and that we can help you out with. So Ben and I started texting, and this is about the time when I could financially afford to get one of my Grails. So he goes to the show and he starts texting me photographs of this card. And it was a reputable dealer who some of you probably have dealt with. So Alex negotiates a bundle with his cards, my card, and I end up Venmoing to Houston, Texas, a very large amount of money. Alex then, Ben sends the card off to me the next day, and he sends it in one of these old eBay authentication holders with his little Cosmic Card sticker on it. And so I end up getting a Grail card that I've wanted for 40 years. So this is the 1934
Oh, yeah.
Audi Lou Gehrig. And I think my 16-year-old self would be proud and happy. But we also have some questions like, what is Twitter and what is Venmo?
Yeah, you must be from the
So we
future.
ended up,
Yes.
we ended up cutting that deal in it, and it's one of my best cards that I have right now. So
Nice.
That's so great. I'll share one with you guys. This is a card that I knew I needed to get when I was building the 53 set. And it was at a time right before the 2019 National, which was the first and so far the only National that I've been to. So I was very excited because I was very close to finishing the 53 set. I think I had maybe 10 cards left, or maybe, I don't know, 10 to 12. And this was one of the last big ones that was still on the list. And so going to the National, I decided I wanted to kind of focus on trying to find this card. I knew I would find some examples, and I just had to try to find the right one. But the other thing, of course, with the National was I had been on YouTube for a couple of years, and I think at that point I had maybe met one, possibly two people in real life, but everybody else that I knew, I had only been talking to in comments and maybe text messages. So I was very excited to actually get to see people in person. And, everybody says this, and it's true. When you finally get to meet somebody in person that you've been connecting with on YouTube or elsewhere, you don't skip a beat. It feels like you've known that person forever. And that was definitely the case when I got to the National. But I didn't really know what to expect. I thought like, I'll see some people and say hello, and then I'll just be on the floor looking for cards. What I was surprised and excited to discover was like, no, I pretty much spent the whole time wandering around with other YouTubers and people that I had met, which was such a great discovery to make. And I want to mention a couple of YouTubers that I'm sure you guys know. Like we've already mentioned Brian Roth a few times. I met Brian at the National. I also met Max Jackson and Andrew Nuff Said Cards, and had a great time walking around with them. And they unsolicited just sort of offered to keep their eyes and ears open for the card that I was looking for. And every now and then I'd get a text message from them. Hey, here's one over here. And, to kind of wrap this story up, this is the 53 mantle that I got
Nice.
at the National.
Wow.
And, I needed this card, and of course it's a great card and I'm excited to have a mantle. But the thing I really like about this card is that, I've got this great story attached to it. I mean, when I look at this card, I think of that National, and I think of those YouTubers and just the great time that I had. And to me, that like ups the value of this card so much more than just whatever the PSA grade is. And so I'm always like excited when I have a card like that, and all of you guys had great stories behind your cards. It's like, it's the card. Yeah. But it's also the stories that you can gain from the experience of being in the hobby and like, interacting with other people. Okay. Next question. This one's kind of a tough one. So I'm going to leave this open to whoever wants to jump in. We're collectors, so that means we're collecting, and we're collecting stuff all the time. We may slow down, but we're always going to be getting new stuff. For example, I haven't gotten a new card in maybe 3 or 4 months, which is a crazy amount of time. but I got a card last night. I'm not going to say which card I got, but I'm excited. It's coming in. So, even when you take a break from cards, there's always a new card, right around the corner. So this may be a tough question for you guys, but here's my question. How much is too much? Are you ever worried about like losing direction with your collection, or do I have too many cards, or have I kind of lost track with what I'm trying to accomplish, or is that like me being overly concerned? Maybe it's not a big deal. Do you have any, like, if you do worry about this, do you have any like personal mantras or tips to kind of keep you on track with your collecting habits?
I would say I have personal mantras. I have personal mantras and tips that I don't do a great job at following.
Perfect.
Because I have such a wide net. I don't buy too many cards, but I always end up spending more than I meant to, because as prices go down, it seems like I'll be watching cards for a long time and I'll see the price go down. And I'll be like, it's on sale. I can't get it's on sale today.
Right.
And then I'll see the next day, this one's on sale. So it's like, I think that I have to sort of, I think that I and others should sort of, make sure you're pacing yourself, and make sure you're sort of taking stock slowly and evaluating your collection, and or don't if you don't care.
Fair enough.
But I guess that's my advice to myself and to whoever might find it helpful.
Well, I live in New York City, so in an apartment. So my hoarding proclivities, which definitely exist, are limited by space.
Right.
So, I have a display behind me, but there's cards and drawers and boxes that get rotated in and out based on, what I'm particularly interested in looking at. So that kind of keeps me, from going a little bit wild like I did for a few years there. And, now I'm starting to concentrate on the player runs. I'm almost done with a few of them. I've got 6 that I'm almost done with. So I think that I've kind of, my mantra is to try to sort of stay with what I'm good at. And I feel like that's what I'm doing right now.
Rena, do you want to go first? Or?
No, go ahead, Rick.
Okay. When I saw this question, it really struck home, Alex, just because some of you may hear me say this on my channel. I am definitely terrified of being a hoarder or becoming a hoarder. I'm pretty meticulous when it comes to keeping tabs of my inventory, and I'm currently literally like 100 cards short of 20,000 in my collection, which I don't consider that much when I see some of these guys. When I hear someone say they have 300, 400, 500,000 cards, I'm like, that's scary. That's an issue. And I don't want to be considered a hoarder, but let's say this, for me personally, if I could get every card that I wanted to from Topps, it would only up my collection by maybe another 10,000 at the most. So I'd have 30,000 cards. And I go, if you have more than that, I think that's an issue. I could tell you right now, Alex, if you said, Rick, go find your 1959 Ted Klaczewski card, I could immediately go get it because I know where everything is organized in my room.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't go crazy. I'm looking at my notes here. Let's just say if I'm buying a set, if I'm working on a set, a 1965 Topps set, I'll do a starter lot of 300 to 400 cards. I will not buy another lot of cards. I know people that they buy a 300, 400 lot, then a month later they buy a 200 card lot, then a few months later they buy another 300 card lot, and I'm like, what are you doing with all these doubles? Finish the damn set and worry about upgrading later.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm done.
Mini rant.
Yeah.
I think though, Rick, what's interesting is, and this I get a lot from Terry from TJ Maxx Vintage. It's the organization of your cards, and when I find that I am less organized, that's when I start to feel overwhelmed. It's like, well, I know there's cards there, but if you ask me to go find, well, I can't give any good example right now, but I may or may not be able to find it, and that kind of worries me. So that's when I kind of put the brakes on and say, okay, well, you got to get organized before you do much else. I think too, I want to, and I've shared the story before, but I think I texted Alex maybe 6-9 months ago, and I just felt weighed down with my modern collection because I came back to the hobby in 2018, and that's all I collected was modern, and I just went crazy, and there was just boxes and closets, and so finally, what I did is I found a guy. I basically donated the cards to him for what he paid for them, and then what made me the most happy and has always made me happy is I gave probably 5-6 bags of cards to a little 4th grade girl who loves baseball. And to me, so if you're feeling weighed down by it, I guess my point is, and you don't know what to do, and you don't want to go to the hassle of selling it all, just find some kid and give it to them because, it's like Alex and his story with his dad. You never know what that may
Right.
do for that kid from years from now. So
Right. Yeah. No, that's great. Yeah. For me, like, I think a couple of you guys mentioned this. One of the reasons I think about this a lot is because I know I'm susceptible to it. I know that if I don't think about it, I will just keep getting stuff and getting stuff and getting stuff because it's fun. It's very fun to collect these cards and to get them and have them coming in. And so because of that, I'm very conscious of it. And it's not because there's anything wrong with having a lot of cards. There's nothing wrong with having a lot of cards. But for me, I always want to know like what's the end goal? Like when I look at my collection, am I happy with it? Do I feel like a sense of accomplishment? Does it feel like it's headed in some direction? And so I'm always asking myself, do I really need this card? Or is there something else out there that I'd be more drawn to? And if I can kind of show a little bit of patience and hold off a little bit, maybe I'll get a card that I really want as opposed to just getting a card to get a card. So, everybody has a different way of approaching it, but to me, it's all about like, what's the end goal? What's the collection that you're trying to have? And are you like working towards it? Okay. Next up, show another opportunity for you guys to show a card. Let's see some vintage cards from your collection. And it's going to be an obscure one. I want you guys to pick an obscure card. It can be a Hall of Famer or it can be a common card. And why you think this card is underappreciated. I'm a big fan, and I think some of you guys are too, of the underappreciated obscure cards, because sometimes to me those cards are just as exciting as a rookie card or an iconic card. There's a lot of cards out there, and I think some of them don't get their due. So, Doug, we're going to start with you. What's your obscure card?
All right, so I have an obscure card. What I failed to take note of is the underappreciated part. so let's just go with it, okay? I'm gonna try to frame this as being underappreciated. I'll try to wing that part. This is so around the world cards. I really like around the world cards. Cards that are foreign representing baseball. So this is a British card representing baseball.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and I think you could argue this is underappreciated. This is it's a 1934 R&J Hill Limited. It depicts Tris Speaker. It's an image that was also on a Cuban Susini card in 1915. So the image originated on another card in 1915, but this is more of like a sepia tone version of it. It actually, I feel like this is actually a little bit more aesthetically pleasing, or maybe I just need to have that other card in front of me. But this card is I really love it. It's pretty obscure because it's it's a British card representing American baseball, and it has that like outsider's view. The description on the back is a little bit uh, unclear of what the game is. I really love those kinds of cards, and they tend to be pretty fairly obscure.
Yeah, no, I mean, Doug, I think that's the only version of that card that I've seen on YouTube. There may be others, but you're the one I think of when I see that card for sure. And I think you're right. It's really fun to find elements of baseball cards that are outside of the U.S. for sure.
Yeah, I love that outsider's take.
Yeah. Who's next? Who wants to jump in?
Well, that's how I got my only Babe Ruth card is the German.
The Sinella, yeah.
So I'm for that. My story actually, I'm sorry, it has 2 cards involved in it.
Go for it. Yeah, you can break rules.
It's I do a lot of Twitter. I also do eBay and auction houses, and but Facebook. I think it's a little bit of a bad rap because, quite frankly, a lot of the groups are trash. But there's a good half dozen of them that I'm a member of, and there's one that's kind of small, and the guy who runs it is a teacher who also deals cards on the side, and for the most part it's low quality stuff, but occasionally something will come in like this. It's a 1952 Num Num Larry Doby.
Whoa!
Wow.
I have some the story doesn't end here. I had some questions about this. First of all, what is Num Num? And I figured out, I looked up. The internet is a wonderful thing. Num Num is it's a snack company from Northeast Ohio. They did some Indians pictures, team pictures in the 40s and 50s. But 52 is when they did these cards. And my other question is, why is this an A? And it's an A because there's a tag that's supposed to be on the bottom. And it's a beautiful card, but it's an A because it doesn't have the tag. And my third question is, because I'm a Bob Feller collector, is there a Feller in the set? And the answer to that question is yes. So I went back to my friend from the group and said, can you find out if you can get the Feller card from that guy? And the guy was like, no way. So come to find out, I asked some Feller collectors. It's really hard card to find. But REA Auctions, it popped up, and it's again the 1952 Num Num, but this one has the
neat.
the bottom.
That's so cool.
And the great thing about it being a 2, because it would be a 7 based on the front, basically, is that the back has these little things of glue. So you end up getting a 2 price on a card that from the front looks like a 7. And I checked the auction, and I paid less than $200 for that. So that's underappreciated, so cool. Because I think Bob Feller's underappreciated. I'm 1 card away from doing the complete flagship run, and I'm going to do a video on that when I get it done. I think he, like most pitchers, are underappreciated. So that's my story.
Right.
So when I say I want Num Nums, that's where that came from?
Yes.
Num Nums. They made pretzels and potato chips and I guess some other snacks. But the great thing about these is that they're potato chip cards, but they don't have the grease on them like the Dandies.
Right.
So and both of them are in terrific condition. And sorry, Nina, they're never leaving my collection.
That's all right.
They're both fantastic. I mean, the Feller image has been used.
Yeah, it's the 53. The 53 used it. Yeah.
But the Dobie, I don't think I've ever seen before, which is, I mean, such a great image.
It is. It's what caught my eye, got me involved in the whole deal.
I'll be rewatching this and focusing on that card for 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Well, you know what? I love the T206 set. It's just more than I can probably handle at this stage of my life. But there are lots of tobacco-related cards from that time period. And we'll talk later about how to get into vintage. But one of my sub-collections is players who grew up in Ohio. And so this is the E97 of Josh DeBoer. And
cool.
I am super attached to cards that are action-oriented.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the headshots are really cool, but I don't know. There's just something I could just, you know, I always often wonder, how are these guys playing in a sweater? So, you know, Josh is showing me how's he playing in a sweater. And the back of the card, you know, there's a subset to this set, and so it lists all the players, which is too tiny to show on screen. But this is, you know, I don't have a ton of obscure, but I consider that a little bit obscure. So
I always wonder with those sweater cards if it's like assumed that they were practicing when
right.
the image was and not actually in a game.
Right.
Yeah.
Although I don't know, in Cleveland in April, I think some of those guys would love for the
Yeah.
sweater cards to come
That's
back.
true.
All right, I guess I'm going next. I chose a card from the very first set I worked on as a kid, the 1973 card set. And one thing, even though, you know, I call myself Dodger card collector and I'm not a big San Francisco Giants fan, I was a big fan of this guy just because he always destroyed the Dodgers.
Oh, yeah.
And this was my favorite card growing up. When I got back into card collecting, and I started working on the 73 set, I wanted this card. I bought it ungraded. And then when I finished the set, I go, no, now I want a graded version. I tried to get a 10. It was impossible to find. So I settled for a 7. And the other reason I brought this card up was because I don't know if you, just a recommendation. I watched this week the Willie Mays documentary on Max. And there's a lot of mention in there about Bobby Bonds.
Yeah.
Right.
And he was going to be the next Willie Mays. And like I said, he used to destroy the Dodgers, and he just used to put up. He was a great all-around player. So I kind of like to talk about him because everyone thinks of him as Barry Bonds' dad. You know what? No, he's Bobby Bonds. He was a great ball player himself.
Yeah. He nearly had like a 40-40 season one year, right?
15 years before Canseco, he had 39
Yeah.
homers and 43 RBI and had 43 stolen bases.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right. All right. I've got one here, in line with kind of what Doug showed. This is a 1925 Turf Cigarettes, which is a British set, and this depicted a lot of different sports from around the world. And this one, of course, is baseball. I saw this first on a YouTube channel, Maxa Jackson, who's a legendary YouTuber, pre-war collector. I saw this card on his channel and definitely wanted to pick it up. I love this kind of stuff because, you know, it's not necessarily of a player, although this card has a really interesting story because the back of the card depicts a record by George Sisler. So there's a lot of debate as to whether or not this is considered a George Sisler card or not. I don't think it is, but it's got that whole thing behind it. And to me, one of the fun things about cards is all the different sort of, you know, rabbit holes you can go down as to the origins of the card and the story behind the card. And this is one of those cards for me. Obscure, but a huge favorite in my collection for sure.
Yeah, I love that card.
All right, we've got 10 minutes left, roughly. So let's see. Let's jump into what I think might be a contentious question. I don't know. Here we go. And Dan, we're going to start with you first. Are you a Topps or a Bowman person? I realize this is a silly question because we're all probably both. But
I think, yeah. I don't mean to interrupt you, but
no, go ahead.
I think you know the answer to this question. I'm just going to show this one card, which is a common card from the 1953 Bowman set. It's Mickey Grasso, who was a backup catcher for Washington and a couple other teams in the 1950s, and otherwise completely random player. But it's an absolutely beautiful photograph. And I was so moved by it that I went and did some research on Mickey Grasso to find out that he's an American hero. Yeah. He was literally a POW for like 2 years in World War II, escaped from a German POW camp and went through the woods of Western Germany. It's like it should be a movie, basically, his life story. So like the 53 Bowman, it's not just that they're beautiful cards and pieces of art, but they have stories behind them, every single one of them. And then, well, You can have a whole channel based on that, I guess, right? So
Yes, it's possible.
a couple others just quickly. 53 Bowman, Call Furillo. I'm one card away from getting my Call Furillo run finished. So just love this card. And 52 for you, Nina, is the Bauer, the Hank Bauer, which his 53 Bowman is also an awesome, very similar type of pose, but I
Yes.
just love this card. So I'm a Bowman guy.
Sweet.
I definitely hedge here. So like, I mean, if I assume we're talking about the 1950s, right? When we talk about, I just think the 1950s is the best decade in baseball, and if it weren't for both of those companies, it wouldn't be nearly as good. So, I mean, those two companies made it an amazing decade, and Bowman had 40, 48, and 49 as well. I love the 49 set. That's one of my favorites.
You're sitting on the fence here, Doug. We've got to.
Oh no, I don't pick a favorite. I can't. Like I just, it's like year over year I might be able to pick a favorite, but I mean, Topps went through the whole decade of the 50s, so Topps has more cards. They have more of a legacy, more brand recognition. But I don't think that's what we're talking about here. I think we're just talking about sort of like what it makes how the cards make you feel and how they represent an era. And I think I just can't pick a favorite. I just think they're both great. Oh, Alex, man.
Nina or Rick.
I'm not gonna be able to speak anymore. I can't win you over.
Go ahead, Nina.
Well, I mean, it's probably a little obvious what I'm a fan of, but it is Bowman, and it is like Dan said, the art is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that it takes a lot of work to figure out, and I haven't done all of this yet, who these artists were that created this and what the photographs were originally. But how you take the photograph and you turn it into something like this with the beautiful, green grass in the background. I don't know. That's just a beautiful piece of art. And then, how they wrote in the 50s. I don't know. That's
Nina. Who is that on that card? I want to write it down.
That's Del Rice.
Oh, Del Rice. I know him.
Mm-hmm. And here's another one. I mean, there's a lot of these in the 50, 51, and 52 Bowman set with the beautiful clouds in the background. And there's a lot of high leg kicks, which I love with pitchers too. So I could go on, but definitely Bowman. And I would say 50, 51, 52 Bowman. But 53 Bowman, gosh, there are no photos like in the 53 Bowman. So.
Yeah, pretty exceptional.
I'm going to agree with all of you on a few things here. I am more of a Topps person. That's not to say that Bowman isn't incredible. I will agree that the 50s was the greatest decade of baseball and baseball cards. And I will add that 1953, Alex, is the greatest year of baseball cards between Bowman and Topps, which is why I chose Mickey Mantle from 1953. This was the card that once I finished my Dodger run, I was kind of like, I want a real vintage set. I want a set that I can just proudly talk about and display. And I go, and I want Mickey Mantle, I want Willie Mays, and I chose these guys. So I'm going to go with Topps, though, just because you guys all said Bowman.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue with the 53 Topps Mantle when you're holding that card up. Like, hard to argue.
Yeah. I just saw Don's comment. He said that I'm a politician, and I just want to clarify. I'm not. I'm just the type of person who can't choose between vanilla and chocolate. That's really what it is.
So, I mean, I have to go with Topps, right? No, I'm just kidding.
Wait, what?
I was like, whoa.
You can send the Bowman cards to my house, Howard.
I mean, one of my favorite all-time sets is 1954 Topps, and I have repeatedly considered trying to build that set at some point. That's my favorite Topps set from the 50s. Probably my favorite Topps set of all time. So, this is a silly question. Of course, we all love Bowman and Topps, but of course, I have a soft spot for Bowman. But I decided to not show a 53 card. Got this Duke Snyder here. And this is a card that I could talk about for hours. Similar to what Nina was saying, it's based on a photograph, so that's interesting. But also, the artist took some liberties with the card, and there's so much detail besides Duke Snyder in the card, and the lighting, and just the detail of Ebbets Field behind him. These are the kinds of cards that I'm like really gravitating towards, and I just feel like Bowman delivers them all the time. And they have, as a company, they just have an interesting story, and I might have a soft spot for the underdog story because obviously Bowman lost out, but
Yeah.
as they lost out, they did some really amazing, innovative stuff over that span of time that unfortunately is kind of lost to history because Topps won the battle. But we talk about it here as collectors, and I don't know, I just love the story behind that company, and every set has its own little mini story behind it. All right, guys, we've got a little bit of time left. So I'm going to jump to that last question. And I'm going to let whoever wants to jump in with your thoughts jump in. Any advice for a collector that's just starting a vintage collection? There's always somebody that's just kind of discovering vintage cards. Maybe they inherit some cards, or they look some cards up. Maybe they started collecting modern and they're thinking about vintage. What's some advice that you might have for somebody that's just starting this, whether it's things that they should be trying to do or things that they should be avoiding?
Hey, Alex, I want to give this.
Oh my God.
That's great. That's great.
I love
Because
that book.
if you don't know what you want to collect or where you want to start,
Yeah.
grab that book. It's not expensive. It weighs a ton, but it is not expensive.
I bought that book because Alex showed it up on his channel a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it's, and you can just flip through there and see what appeals to you. So I would also say, check with grandma or grandpa and ask them, like, who'd you like back in the day? So
Yeah.
You always
I
hear
would say.
people. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. You go. I insist. You go ahead.
You always hear the same cliches, but it's really true. Buy what you like. I would also just say try not to buy everything. I know there are people out there that want to buy everything, but and then it's not a sprint, you guys. It's a marathon. Just buy your cards slowly. See what you like. Learn. Do research. Don't just buy. Don't get excited and call me and said, I just bought a bunch of 93 Donruss cards. I'm so excited. It's like, wow, dude. I hope you didn't pay much for them.
Yeah, and I just take your time, learn the landscape. There might be some iconic, expensive cards of a player where you can get a card that you like visually more for way less. And I just wanted to show real quick cards that I got for like $50 or less. That this is a Parker Brothers game card of Matt Wadgeway
so great.
from
Yeah.
from
Look at that.
from 1913.
Wow.
So and then you can get strip cards. This is an Al Simmons strip card. This is a Heine Manouche strip card. And then this is a Paul Wainer 1936 Gaudy. So the 1936 Gaudy is not really that popular of a set, but this is a classic looking black and white card. It's so nice. And these all around $50. So like you can get cards at a decent entry point if you it's not easy. That's not easy, but you can.
I think Doug's point is great because that's kind of what I was going to talk about. It's combining like the last two questions you had, Alex. And this is a 1936 Gaudy fine pen, Bill Dickey.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, it's the fine pen. No, it's the wide pen. There's wide pens and fine pen. This is the wide pen. I checked the price that I paid for this raw on a estate sale auction. I paid $23 for it. And so, wow. I mean, this is a pre-war Hall of Famer Yankee in a classic sort of catcher pose. Sure. And to me, like this card speaks to me, and I think that's really the best advice I think that you could give to a collector is look at the card in your hand. Does the card speak to you? Does it tell you a story? Does it bring out some kind of emotion in you? And I feel like that's kind of what I want a card to do for me if I'm going to buy it. And, you know, sure, the set collectors, you're not going to like all 727 cards in the 1972 set. But for cards that I have on display, I want them to speak to me. And as long as they're speaking to me, they're going to be up on the display. If they stop speaking to me, they're either going to get sold or get replaced by one of the cards that's in the draw. So that's really where I am at. So I feel like that's the way to collect vintage is to stuff that touches you, that's important to you.
That's the perfect note to end on, guys. We're just about out of time. I did want to mention that you should be hopping over to the next live stream, which is Sports Card Dad, starting at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Doug, Dan, Nina, and Rick, thank you all for your time and for your thoughts. Had a lot of fun doing this. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Alex.
Enjoy the rest of the
Alex.
hobby.
Don't forget to donate, you guys.
Buddy.
Thanks.
Appreciate it, everyone.